Hi, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining the VWO webinar, where we always try to upgrade and inspire you with everything around experimentation and conversion rate optimization. I'm your host, Divyansh. I'm a marketing manager at VWO, a full funnel website experimentation platform. Today, we have a special guest who I feel a lot of people already know or will know after this presentation. Welcome, Gary from Roundbarn Labs.
Thank you. Good morning.
Sure. And before starting with the actual discussion, I want to let our attendees know that you too can participate in this discussion. GoToWebinar does not allow me to switch on your cameras, but I can switch on your mics. If you want to share your thoughts on the questions being discussed, do let me know for that. Send me a request using the chat or the question box from the control panel, and I will be happy to unmute you. Gary, please take it away.
Awesome. Good morning and welcome to Closing the Loop on ROI. We'll be talking about paid marketing in combination and coordination with CRO today and how that best drives a higher return on the ad spend, return on investment, whichever way that you like to abbreviate and talk about the return on the money that you spend here. My name is Gary Marks. I'm the Senior Director of Conversion Rate Optimization at Roundbarn Labs. I've been in the optimization space for over a decade now and loved it. It's been a lot of fun. I've run tests on 7 million visitors per hour on sites like CNN down to not even maybe tens of thousands or just single digit thousands on some B2B sites or startups on Shopify e-commerce stores and a lot of things in between. So we'll talk about how I see this working at Roundbarn Labs. And I'll talk to you through two different sections really. We'll go over a contrast on paid versus CRO, what the similarities and differences are, how the user journeys continue from one to the other and overlap, and some segmentation that can come out of paid. And then I'll do a separate section, which is really how you can take action on this. So I'll give you some points on how we do it here that we found really drive collaboration and success across the programs, and give you 5 tests to walk away with that you can implement tomorrow, today, depending on how fast you can get your designers and your developers up. So first, I wanted to go over a little bit of who Roundbarn Labs is. We're a high-touch performance marketing agency. We focus on full growth and ROAS. So that is very, very key with pairing paid with CRO to focus on the ROAS there. We've worked for some house name brands such as Amazon, Nextdoor, Axis, Oculus Quest, and others, and that drives some of the experience today. As always, you've got to have some social proof. Our customers love us. And lastly, on this little discussion about what my day job is, we really believe in growth loops, and conversion rate optimization pairs with affiliate pairs and supports paid marketing, and paid marketing then goes and supports conversion rate optimization. The big thing here is not to keep things in silos, but to break down the walls in order for things to succeed and become more than the sum of their parts. And in the way we talk about it, it's kind of like adding chocolate and peanut butter together. Two unlikely things that no one in their right mind would have combined before, but they're fantastic on their own, and when you put them together, they're more than the sum of the parts. And so for today's conversation, some of you might be thinking, well, I don't like Reese's. That's fine. It might not be for you. And the combination of paid and CRO might not be for your organization. And others would be more like, well, do I eat around the rim, or do I take a big bite? Do I eat out the center first and eat the edge second? And that depends on the culture at your company. And happy to talk to you further about that. But here we're going to focus more on the results and how you can get started. You'll have to figure out the way that you like to eat it afterwards. All right, so let's dive in and talk about the differences and similarities on paid versus CRO. We're first going to start at the high level when we're setting expectations for our customers. Our paid team will present something talking about the ROAS that they believe they can return. Here's an example on $500,000 in ad spend, a little over, driving a 5.5 ROAS. So they're just under 4 million in revenue driven from that $500,000 in ad spend, $650,000. So for every dollar they put in here, they expect to get $5.50 back, $5.60. This is different from how we talk in the land of conversion rate optimization, because we're talking about the lift and how if we can increase the conversion rate, what does the revenue do? And there's ranges for those revenue. Here, it's very tied directly to a dollar in, a dollar out, which is some of the difference there. And as you see on the left in paid, This is the language that my paid team uses on a daily basis. They talk about ROAS, they talk about click-through rates, and they have their partners in CRO land. The bullets are even on the right. So ROAS, they talk about just as much as we talk about conversion rate. They talk about click-through rate just as much as we talk about lift. Impressions on their end just as much as we talk about unique visitors. And there you start seeing some of the differences, but some of the similarities. Creative, we talk about images. But the impressions versus unique visitors is a different way of measuring and actually a different metric altogether. And we have to take their metrics and we have to work with them for the way that we need our metrics to also work. The wonderful thing about this is there is a huge overlap. They're both systems for gathering learnings and getting closer to the customer to understand what drives them and what can convert them. So we're both focused on adding revenue. And the big thing is when CRO is supporting paid, we're focused on the cost of acquisition and driving that down, especially because we understand what that cost of acquisition is. So you guys are all probably familiar with ICE frameworks, impact, confidence, effort, the second 3 columns there after the channels one. And then we add cost and score. This is another thing that our paid team will do when they're talking to customers. Whereas CRO, you're probably used to seeing these for tests and different test ideas and test pages. I wanted to share what this looks like for the different channels that our paid team is working across. And as you see, TikTok is on the bottom here, or second to bottom, and it's one of the most popular, if not the most popular place to go and spend money right now. In fact, I was at a conference last week and they were saying, if you're not on TikTok, you got to get on TikTok. You're losing out. There's so much going on there. It's the place of the future because of the way content is now digested and also film in a vertical format first and foremost. So those are some fascinating things, but I want to encourage you to take a look at what you're doing today in relation to where to get started on CRO. If you have your bulk of paid marketing and dollars in Google, display, or Facebook, focus on that first. Don't try to spin up a new channel because it takes so much effort just to spin that channel up and get it right. If you're trying to optimize and set up a new set of frameworks on top of that, you're adding more challenge to yourself. You can do it, but it could be more successful quicker if you start with an existing channel. So take a look at where you're spending your dollars currently and how much of a ROAS you get for that, and then prioritize based on that. So let's take a look at CRO. You might be familiar with CRO roadmaps. Again, we just saw what our pay team does. This, we could do a teardown, and I say, hey, every other week we're going to run a test, so 2 weeks at a time, and there's 2 different sections. The top row here is the landing page that coordinates with our paid, and so we'll start tearing out that paid page, and you can use a tool like VWO to target based on the UTMs and query parameters that are coming from that paid traffic. So that's why this first test is remove navigation, make the CTA scroll, so we can turn an existing page into a landing page without having to build a new page. VWO is a fantastic tool for that, and we can keep going down the testing roadmap here in coordination with paid and do our normal things, but have a focus for pairing with paid here. And so now that we've seen some contrasts and some differences and similarities, how do they overlap? We're going to start with a little look at the data. So in this case, the top row is a screenshot, a little modified out of Google Analytics, and the bottom is out of our Google Data Studio where we're pumping and doing a funnel. So the top section is our paid team, and they're looking at impressions and the click-through rate. As you can see, we'll do a Major League Baseball game. So let's do a ticket center that we're doing here. A 1% or almost a 2% click-through rate in the top right box is equivalent to about 40,000 or 3,500 visitors or impressions. So it's not visitors. When we tag that onto the site for the on-site funnels, we're looking at almost 12 million visitors. It's a different metric, but it shows how people are being funneled in from unique visitors to impressions. These are just some of the campaigns I'll be running, but this is where we know they go in. And we could separate this to just show those 40,000 in conversion rate going through, but this is how you can connect the paid work to CRO and start looking down the funnels that happen from where you're pumping users into. You might not be pumping users into the top of the funnel, but further down the stream, closer to the action, whether they're in checkout or the step before. All right, if you have any questions as we're going through this, please raise your hand. We're going to start getting into some examples and deeper stuff here. So one of the things we look at here is add to matching landing page consistency. When we run a creative ad like you see on the left, which is very impact focused, very visual, and we send it to a page which is in the middle of the control, we see a good return on it, we see a good conversion, but we don't always see the best. And what we found is if we take a still image or a video to play in the background that's equivalent to the best performing ads and put that, as we see on the variation on the right, we sold a bear, and there it is in the video, we got a 40% lift. Now this was a product in beta, but it still had thousands and tens of thousands of visitors. So this was at scale and statistically significant between both. And it can be done. And this was on Facebook's channel. So another Facebook ad that we coordinated for was selling Yankees tickets. Back to the example on the data. We had the stadium image for Get My Seat on the left in the ad. It was a still frame. And we took another stadium image that was a little different angle, but the same stadium, Yankee Stadium, of course. And even though there are other changes, it was the parallel in the imagery that drove that 4.5% lift as we were going through and doing testing. So this is something key to keep in mind. And now I'm going to talk a little bit more about these different segments. On the left, nothing should be a surprise. We added affiliate down there since we're very much in affiliate marketing for a part of our agency here. And the question is, do you run this as a relay race where there's a handoff from paid to CRO and on-site, or are you going to copy and print exactly what's done on the paid ad on the website? And the answer is it depends. So if we go through some examples here, this was a Facebook ad on the left. The best performing, the videos were the same, but when the paid team changed the copy that was written, when they included no cost that's underlined, or did not include no cost performed better. Everything else, all things equal. So we figured on the landing page, it didn't have no cost there. And as big, it was in the second to last line in that small paragraph. So we thought, let's put it in the headline. If it's that much of an impact on the paid system, maybe copying it will drive more lead generation here. In fact, the opposite was true. If we had a loss in lead generation, statistically significant. And so we took a look at this and realized this was the wrong scenario to do an exact copy. The users were already aware it was no cost. They wanted to take that next step, but they wanted their desire and their interest stoked a little bit. So another test we did, this was on Google Ads just after, so different channel. We were taking a look at a landing page that existed and worked for other channels, and take a look here. And as they were going through, again, a lot of change in the ad copy, since this is just copy, no imagery. When we pushed it to the control or the variation, we saw a 14% lift on the variation, and that decreased the cost of acquisition by 24%. Now, there are a number of things here that are happening, but the primary thing was the passing of the baton. We did not focus on the free again, even though Clear Caption's free phone is the first three words that you see on the advertisement. We focused on the benefit. If you take a look at any of those frameworks like AIDA, attention, interest, desire, and action, there were a few things that needed to happen here to drive this lift and drive down the cost of acquisition. And that was drive the desire a little bit more through the benefit and make the action very visible. If we hid the action, we still had a huge lift just by making the desire stoked here. So,
hello, Gary.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you, Gary, but there's a question. Andreas wants to know, how does the data studio picture works with customer behavior around ITP, cross-device behavior, and the attribution for the paid social in Facebook?
So attribution would be a whole nother conversation that we could do a webinar all by itself. There are some fantastic tools, and we do some great data analysis with our business intelligence and analytics team. In that Google Data Studio photo here, let's go back. We are focused on the last touch attribution here. But you'll notice we have prospecting and retargeting for this funnel here. So it's taking a look at both the first touch and then retargeting, getting users to come back after they've seen it. Really good question.
Do let us know if that answers your question. I can also quickly unmute you if you want to, kind of understand more about it. Gary, we can go ahead.
All right, thank you. All right, so here's something for affiliate. You may or may not be doing podcast ads, but what I found, let's say you're listening on Spotify or any other podcast tool. If you're not paying and you're for the premium on Spotify, you do hear ads. And some of those ads are really fantastic. The person doing this podcast is doing a read through, and they have a very high level of trust with their audience. In fact, they become an authority figure. And something I found is we can get 15% conversion through the funnel. That's purchase. That's people landing on the page, coming direct to these links, as long as we're focusing on the authority figure. And that made a big difference for these funnels. The best performing reads on podcasts and these affiliate partners, it was the consistency wasn't necessarily to the discount. It was there, but it was more for having the imagery and the call out to the podcast that the user was coming from, rather than going towards the brand and the product. So that was something with consistency. Again, it's a pass off, but here the pass off looked a bit different because we still had the advertisement as a heavy part of what the landing page looked like at the top. So, and as always, mobile, take a look at your mobile versus desktop. If you're getting much more traffic on your mobile than your desktop, it's worth considering doing that split. If you're getting a vastly different conversion rate between the two, again, the split. If you're getting a lot of users looking on mobile, but then buying a desktop, that's a different complexity. We're not talking too much about that today, but that is worth then looking at how do you test on mobile to really remove the barriers, figure out where the user is in their journey, and if you have to remove some of the form fields or requests that make it hard for them to purchase on mobile. And then see if you can't reduce the drive, the switch from mobile to desktop. We see that on a number of clients all the time, and that goes back to the attribution question, but it's really tricky to be tracking that without a logged in state. There are some tools out there like Triple Whale that we're experimenting with, and VWO does have some neat ways that you can use the query parameters and the source to look at. So let's move on to how you can take this and work on it for yourself over the next few weeks, few days. The biggest thing here is communication amongst your team. We really encourage to break down silos. Don't let them build in the first place if possible, because the best places for growth have meetings on a weekly basis, are talking between the different teams and act as one unified team. And then here, so we meet every Friday. We have, people can be optional if they want to attend or not, based on everything else going on. But we set a floor to show up, talk about what CRO is seeing, brainstorm about what paid is seeing, and we make it fun. We look at data, we present the challenges, we go over what has worked, what hasn't worked, and then the floor is open. And it's kind of a whiteboarding session, which, despite being fully virtual, works fantastically. And then align the messaging. Make sure that your team is aware of what paid is sending. They may be changing the messaging every day, but what is the core of what they're having on the message? Are they talking about something free? Are they talking benefit? Are they talking social proof? What are they focused on in their messages, and how are they iterating? If you can get that communication from your paid team, then your on-site team, your devs, your optimization of on-site can coordinate with that and align it. You don't have to copy exactly, but make sure you're aligned. And then let your paid team tell you where they're spending their dollars and what the return on ad spend is. The more that you can increase a conversion rate for any of their channels, the lower their cost of acquisition will be. So say $1 that was spent on, I mean, we have inflation right now, so $1 that you spent at the grocery store 2 months ago is now needed to be $1.20 or $1.10 for that same product, or more if we're talking gasoline. Here we're talking about deflationary actions. So $1 that your paid team would have spent yesterday, now that you've increased the conversion rate, they only need to spend 80 cents in order to get that same result for $1. Those are huge things in a time like today that will make your clients, your teams, your bosses very happy, and your business is more successful and able to compete. So feel free to interrupt me with any questions as we go through that. We could dive more afterwards about what makes this work. It's going to be custom to your team. And that's the big thing about the chocolate and peanut butter. How do you eat it? This is a framework to get started, but how you set that up with your team and how you get the communication to go is going to be up to you. So lastly, I promised you 5 tests to walk away with. So here's a way to tune it up right away. Copy the language on the ads and CTAs onto the landing page, from the ads to the landing page. Just do a direct copy, make it parallel or make it continuous. Have that as a follow-up test. Take and look at the next step. If you have the attention and the interest, stoke the desire. Maybe go direct to the action on the landing page. Connect your imagery. Take a still image as you saw from the video content, get the best performing. You don't have to get the best still image the first time, but iterate on that. You can also, if you're doing still images, copy exactly the still image to the landing page. This shouldn't be surprising in that sense. You probably see a lot of advertisement for clothing where it's a specific shirt or sweater, and then you click on that, wanting that, and you get to the landing page, and it's a different product page, or it's a product listing page, and you can't find the product you're looking for. Imagine how frustrating that is, or if you've been through that, you know. Now expand that to other areas. You want to have that consistency through the imagery because you're setting expectations in the advertisement, and the website's going to deliver on those expectations. Now, expose the CTA action. Here, instead of having a button, depending on how warm your users are from the advertising, if it's that retargeting group and they're ready to buy, or if it's a direct response on the prospecting that you saw earlier, then reduce the form field. You don't need as much information, and that could be a barrier for them purchasing. Whereas other channels, you might need more information to reach out to them or have more information about them. If you just expose form fields that are otherwise hidden, expose pricing that otherwise is hidden, that could drive users' interest down the funnel as well, or send them directly to the PDP or even to checkout. Shopify allows you to send links directly to checkout from advertising and have the product in the cart. If the user is ready for that and they just want to buy it, that is a huge way to do it. And if you're worried about the average order value being too low on purchasing that, there's post-purchase options that you can do. But focus on getting the user through the funnel as quickly as possible, and exposing the action rather than just a call to action is a huge way to do that. And lastly, as you're doing this, your website will grow from one version of the website to responsive versions of that website. VW is a great tool for doing this, especially using query parameter targeting or UTMs, sources, campaigns, and building it from a static version of the site to a responsive version that serves a few different channels. And then as you grow in your sophistication and complexity down the road, to dedicated landing pages that you've proven the value, you can now build on that, whether it's unbounce or a developer. There's different costs associated, but make changes specific to an audience. Building funnels specific to them is the direction that this heads you off in. All right, and if you take a screenshot of just one of these slides today, I'd recommend taking this one. These are the last 5 tests that I've recommended based on the channels that you'll most likely be focusing on, in whichever order is most appropriate for your paid team and your business. So with that, I want to say thank you. It's been a lot of fun, and I'd like to open the floor for conversations.
Thank you so much, Gary. That was such a well put presentation. I'd like to request all of you, if you have got any questions, do let us know in the chat box or in the questions panel, and Gary would be more than happy to answer them. Andres, I'm going to unmute you, and maybe then you can carry forward the conversation.
All right, so what are people thinking?
Andres, you can go ahead with your question.
Hello, Andreas speaking. Hello, hi, Gary. Yeah, I was thank you for the great presentation with the A/B test, and I like this scoring method with different ad disciplines with TikTok, Snapchat, Google, Instagram, and also the tips in that we have in the end with the A/B test. But I have a question with a generic question with A/B test. Which tips and tricks do you have to bring to get the developer in IT department to prioritize A/B tests to have a great hypothesis and I-score method, but it's hard to get to the dev department to create a B variant with the JavaScript and web developer skills that I don't have. What do you have for tricks to prioritizes more like that further than maintains things under the hover. Yeah.
Gotcha. So the question is, what advice do I have on getting things to be prioritized for development?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
With like bigger A/B test.
What are the primary goals for your organization? Do you have OKRs or quarterly rocks?
Yeah, the bigger goal for me was like to it's kind of, that's a really good question, because it was different for different departments, I would say. So the department have their goal, and for me, I have the business goal top of mind. So
the business goals are a really great place to focus on if you're making a request that's in support of the business goal. Let's say we could talk about ROAS here as an example. If we want to increase the return on the ad spend on the marketing team from a 5 to a 5.6, then the request to have a developer do something in order to support that goal would be worth X amount of dollars to the company. If we go back to, the very top here, when we're looking at the revenue for paid and the way that they pitch it, this is part of that setting of expectations. Like, hey, we need the following resources in order to deliver this ROAS. That's part of our pitch as well. And that goes into pricing, that goes into telling them how it's staffed up, the coordination, all those things. It could help out very much with your developer. But if you have a spend budget and you need a certain amount of revenue, but you can't achieve that revenue without the support of a developer, then outlining what those tasks are for the developer and how much they would drive in potential value for the company could be a way of selling people on, hey, okay, this is worthy to support. Otherwise, a tool like VWO, there's ways to use it without having a developer, or getting even a budget to hire a developer from outside that can work in VWO, so that they're making changes only on the front end as the page loads, rather than pushing code to the back end, which some clients find and some organizations may have more challenges with.
Yes. Yeah. Great answer. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, there's my background. I've done full stack engineering. Some clients, it's a lot of fun. When you're in the tool, when you're technical, you value the work you do. When you talk to people in the business roles, they look at development not necessarily as something to always be doing, but as a function, a cost function. And the trick here is to make parts of that cost function become a revenue generator. And if you combine development and support of a higher return on the ad spend, you can directly tie their actions into revenue generation.
I don't know about others, but I 100% agree to that. Uh, uh, I think there are no more questions, Gary, apart from Sunny says thank you and a hello.
You're welcome, Sunny. Hello.
Thank you all for joining in for this webinar. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. For any other questions or any more doubts, you can write back to us, or you can connect with Gary. You'll have the socials with you, and there's a handout attached to your handout section. It is a ebook which contains tests and summaries from tests which were done successfully for brands across the globe. So you can download that for your reference, and see you until next time. Thank you so much.